Yeah, SLP and SLP. Light SLP and really dark SLP. National focus completed. Alex Douglas Ohm was escorted into the courtroom, already certain on how he would be judged. He held no hope that the judges would grant him mercy. He was the Prime Minister, and to the rebels he had betrayed his country, betrayed his people. Ohm was forcibly motioned to his seat alongside his defence team, who could not hide their contempt for him. These were the friendliest faces in the room, and then the judge began the proceedings. Alec Douglas Ohm, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of heinous crimes. You stand accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty, his lawyer responded unconvincingly. Ohm's defence team gave an uninspired, stunted speech that claimed he was too scared to fulfill his duty as an Englishman, to resist the Germans, and feared for his life. Once they'd finished, the prosecution immediately tore into Ohm, insulting his character, calling him a coward and, of course, a damned bloody traitor. The jury took no time to deliver their deliberation. Ohm's first thoughts after the verdict were of rage. These fools! Once Germany gets back on their feet, they'll be back to crush England once and for all. There would be no more England after they were done, but he calmed down. There was no use in spending his last days angry at the people he understood. He only wished they weren't so hasty. Ohm was not fazed as they sentenced him to death, and did not struggle as he was pulled back to his cell to await his fate. The snake receives his due judgment. Ohm sat in his cell awaiting his fate. He'd already come to terms with his impending execution not long after his sentencing. There was no use fighting it now. However, his death crept closer and closer to him. Lord Ohm's mind drifted to another life. He thought of a life where he helped the resistance. He saw himself smuggling documents out of Westminster, subtly resisting the Germans from inside Parliament. But wasn't that what he was already doing? It was an open secret that many in Parliament had no love for the Germans. Yeah, they were collaborators, and it was necessary to work from within to keep the boot from coming down too hard on all of England. Ohm's rationalising was interrupted by two guards who ushered him to his feet. It's time. Ohm was led to the sunlight and saw a courtyard. He recognised the Tower of London, which loomed over him. He was escorted to the opposite side of the Tower Green and made to kneel against a wall, and saw a small gathering was assembled to watch. He couldn't make anyone out, but he was sure that Auchinleck was watching. The firing squad marched in, halted, executed a crisp bright face. They stood at attention, awaiting further commands. "Ready!" The sharp command punched the morning air. The soldiers raised their rifles. Ohm's mind filled with the activity. He continued to try to rationalise his decisions, if only to himself. "Aim!" The soldiers trained their rifles on him. Ohm saw little fear in their eyes, just resolve. Finally, regret swarmed through Ohm's mind. If only you could take it all. Fire! Ohm's last thoughts were a regret, were interrupted by 4 shots that rang throughout the courtyard. The head of the snake had been cut. The bootlicker? No, let's go for the traitor. Or the reformist. I'm kind of curious what they say about Macmillan. Harold Macmillan, the Chancellor and Under-Treasurer of His Majesty's Exchequer, and the head of the reformist wing of the Royal Party. Well known for his stance towards softening the collaborationist government and allowing a larger degree of freedom, his convictions apparently were not enough to overcome the fear of German intervention, and now he awaits punishment for being a wartime minister of Douglas Home's cabinet. Macmillan's not like the other prominent defendants of the cabinet, however. Unlike Home, he has never been in a position where he was responsible for the horrible crimes of the government. And, unlike Chesterton, he has not had a terrible and shameless individual who truly believed in the objective right of what he was doing. Perhaps that will allow him to avoid their fates. Perhaps not. We shall see. Elections. Okay, we only just completed. Meet the Kulesas. The Kulesa family didn't know what to expect when they were smuggled from the coast of Lithuania on an iron barge going to Sweden. And they didn't know what to expect when they were landed there. Long ago, they decided Sweden wasn't safe because its friendly ties to Germany, so they crossed the country to get to another ship, one which took them to another country. One that, for sure, wouldn't betray him to Germany, and thus they knew the worst was over when the smugglers dropped him off in Norwich. Eventually, the Kulesas ended up with many other Lithuanian immigrants in the neighbourhood of Becktown. There, life was tough, crime was rampant, poverty widespread, and oftentimes it felt like they weren't wanted by the public. Little Joachimas was harassed by his peers at school for his limited understanding of English. Edvas had trouble finding steady work for the longest time, and the neighbourhood had quite a fright when some youths painted a swastika on the side of Kulesa apartment building. Sometimes they considered moving somewhere else, Scotland, New York, or even Vancouver. In the end, they stuck it out. Now things are looking up. Edvas has found a job as a chef for a local restaurant, cooking up Sepelani for hungry Londoners. The kids are doing well in school, and it seems like the Kulesa family has finally put the violence and starvation of their homeland behind them forever, basking in the peace and prosperity of free England instead. If there's a land for free men anywhere, this is it. Oh, SOP went for Lancashire again. Oh, no, I can campaign. Ah! And they're now going for Newcastle, which we already established as a safe seat. So no, we're going for Somerset. Macmillan was always going to be a controversial case. For many years, he headed up the reformist faction of the Royal Party and had at least somewhat pushed for a partial reform. But when the war came, he ended up in the cabinet of Douglas Home, and anyone in the cabinet ended up at Oxford, even if they were primarily dealing with His Majesty's treasury. Things took a strange turn. At the opening of the trial, Macmillan stood up and read a prepared statement. In it, he told the jury that he had joined the collaborators out of a desire to stop the suffering of the English citizens back in the war, and that he had attempted to subvert the will of the Germans at every turn he could. His goal had been to see a return to the English democracy. However, he had decided to remain in the Royal Party during the war, out of fear that rebellion would be unsuccessful, and because of a fear that the garrison of Cornwall would put an end to organised resistance along with Germany. It was only after the war had ended, with a free government restored, that the garrison crushed, and Germany still in chaos did realise the enormity of his mistake. He accepted responsibility for his actions and apologised. This threw the trial into a tailspin. The defence argued that Macmillan was sincere of his regret for an enormous mistake done with the best of intentions. The prosecution argued it was not enough, and merely a last-ditch attempt to save his life. The jury was divided as well. The NDL-orientated ones argued that he should be exiled, while the Sterlingites wanted him dead for his actions. The leftists were more merciful, however. They wished to see him experience a new England taking shape first-handedly, removed from any of its politics, of course. So, what do we think? It needs to be removed from the scene entirely. One bullet, back of the head, clap clap. Or removing him from politics is enough. I think that this merits another poll. So many polls. Harold Macmillan. Removed from the scene. One bullet. Back of head. Or removed from politics. So removed from the scene is the pro-NDL, which is the government that we're trying to get into power. One bullet, back of the head, clap clap, that is the Sterlingites. Or removing him from politics would be the left option. So what do we think? Vote, vote, vote. Get your votes in. We've got this vote now. So what do we think? Should we remove him from the scene, which I think is exile? One bullet, back of head, bang bang. Or remove him from politics. As a Lithuanian, 10 out of 10 for the pronunciations. Oh, thanks. Lithuanian's not a language I come up against very often, so I tried. So vote, vote, vote. We're about halfway through the vote right now, so make sure you get your voices heard. It's actually a remarkably close election, this one. I'm impressed. Okay, so we have had our result. Von Ragnar contributed 100 bits and Aristide Bonsavu contributed 24,000 channel points, so some of you definitely waging in with some material assistance. So Remove from Politics came in with an 18%, One Bullet back of head, 38%, and I did think for a while that they may have won there. But ultimately, it has been decided that he shall be removed from the scene with a 44% victory. And there we are. Alright, next focus. Let's do the traitor. Bernard Montgomery. If he had died in the invasion, he would forever be remembered as a hero. If he had refused service with the collaborators, he might still be. If he had joined with the HMMLR, he may have had a chance of redemption, and yet here he is. I thought we blew him up. The case is clear cut. He was in charge of the collaborationist army, and everything the army did could be blamed on him. However, he still has conducted actions in the past which were admirable, and there remains a not insignificant amount of respect from him among Claude and his supporters. Might it be worth it to temper justice with mercy? The West Siberian People's Republic declared to run the Siberian Black League. I think that means that, yeah, Siberian Black's actually at war with two different people. The vast judgment. All of them? Asked one of the officers on the prosecution team. Yeah, all of them, affirmed the lead prosecutor. Most of these people on the list are MPs that haven't been involved in anything too terrible. Sure, they may have voted on a few suspicious things, but that's not entirely criminal or worthy of serious punishment aside from kicking them out of the House of Commons. That doesn't mean we can just kill them all. Sure we can, said one of Sterling's aligned officers. Another officer was taken aback by the statement. Nah, we can't. If we do this, we'll be in a massive orgy of violence. Besides, these people aren't going to live in a future in politics after this. Who wants the old over from the Royal Party days? You're correct, said the main prosecutor. We need to make the transition as painless as possible, and that means we can't just slaughter everyone who disagrees with us. These people have terrible views and beliefs, but that doesn't mean we should kill them or make them suffer untoward punishment. Now, let's go over the people we're letting off one last time to make final decisions. Yes, sir, said the attorney as he began to read. First up is Thatcher, Margaret. Any objections to keeping her on the list? There weren't. Alright, so that's her case settled. I'll let her defence know she's free to go. Next, we've got... Save the bullets for the important people. Like Monty. Okay, so Somerset has been done. Have we lost one? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, we haven't. Are we any closer to gaining Somerset? Yes, I think next one we will. Because we get 4 popularity, that's a 27. Boom, Somerset's ours. And they're still going for Newcastle, which they don't have a hope in hell in winning. Oh, they're boosting Somerset, though. Oh, no, that's the MSA. That's okay. That's not the Reds. The traitor. The trial of the Field Marshal. The Field Marshal strode into court with his chest puffed out and his head held high, nodding respectfully towards the judges and taking his seat beside the defence team. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty, his barrister announced. The defence team pointed a stark picture before the jury, a picture of a brave, noble military man who fought in both world wars to defend his country. A picture of a soldier who sacrificed his pride and dignity to join the collaborators in hopes of preventing the German grip from squeezing the life out of England. A picture of an Englishman who tried to serve his country. Montgomery had insisted to his team that he himself be called as a witness, and he gave a short but powerful speech regarding his duty as an officer to protect English people in the case of tyranny and evil, even if that means sacrificing the values you hold dear. The prosecution fought back against such claims, arguing that by sacrificing the values of liberty and democracy, Montgomery had failed to protect the English people. The jury, naturally, is split. Those following Claude and the NDL wish for the veteran to be sent into exile, while supporters of the SLP want to see him properly punished with a sentence of forced labour. Those sympathetic to Sterling, however, have argued for his death. Let him spend the rest of his contemplative days in shameful exile. Death is the only choice for traitors, or forced labour should change his pomposity. And this is, of course, another vote, because this is democracy. Alright, so this is exile, death, or forced labour. And vote. Get your votes in. Vote, vote, vote. Those are your three choices. Exile, death, or forced labour. Sterling's just trying to shoot everyone. Yeah, Sterling was always kind of portrayed as a bit of a bloodthirsty, vengeance-y type. I don't necessarily think that he was in real life, but I think events in this game have made him into one. So, vote, vote, vote. Get your votes. Vote, vote, vote. Oh man, this is close. Every vote is going to count here, so make sure you get them in. This is interesting. Sterling's focus tree is probably just a list of people to kill. Maybe. Good grief. 33, 33, 34%. Crazy close. Like, literally every vote is going to matter here. So, make sure you vote. Because, wow. This is ridiculous. I think this is probably the closest vote I've ever seen on this channel. And we've seen a lot of close votes, but never like this. Not in a three-way. Two-way, sure, but not in a three-way. Perfectly balanced, as all things should be. So, vote, vote, vote. Couple of seconds left. Okay, interesting. So, Witty contributed 300 bits. Thank you very much for that, Witty. And Grizz LV contributed 13,000 channel points. So, thank you also for that. So. One of them got 36% of the vote. One of them got 34% of the vote. And one of them got 31% of the vote. The one which got 34% of the vote was Exile, which I thought was actually going to be the one that wins. So that leaves one of those two choices with 36 and one of those two choices with 31. And I will tell you right now that Death lost. So he is being sent to forced labour, which honestly is probably pretty much the same thing. But we're going to go forced labour should change his pomposity. And off he goes. Alright, next up, we're going to say bootlicker. Arthur Chesterton. If there ever was a man more reviled in all of England, hated by both the rebels and the collaborators alike, we've yet to find him. A fascist demagogue so low he could walk under the Dachshund's belly, the head of the collaborationist secret police and the head of the black shirt paramilitary group during the war. Certainty, he has an enormous amount to answer for, though we'll try to be fair to him, as fair as one can be when looking at an individual as heinous as Chesterton is. Begin. Alright, so... nope, we're still doing our campaigning. You're still going for Newcastle. We're still massively ahead of you in Newcastle. You're not going to get that. Okay, so Somerset still hasn't been won. Let's stick another in Somerset then. Especially because the MSA is going to mess that one up a bit. How long have we got until the election? 31 days. That's not a long time. We could also stick more on these three. Loyalty will rise. Loyalty will decrease. Efficiency will rise. Efficiency will decrease. Loyalty will mildly rise. That's mildly and mildly. And then a moderate and a moderate. So again, kind of got to do all three of them. Slowly but surely increasing the efficiency. And also the loyalty, I guess. Okay. Divine Mandate of Siberia has defeated the Pacific Fleet in a war. The bootlicker, a.k.a. Chesterton, shuffled into the room escorted by 2 guards, his eyes darting from judge to judge. A low murmur erupted throughout the room as the court glared at the old man in disgust and fury. He sat beside the defence team who were barely making eye contact. Arthur Kenneth Chesterton, you stand here in front of all of England, accused of the most heinous crimes. You stand accused of high treason against England and her people. How do you plead? Not guilty, came the muted response of his barrister. The defence unenthusiastically referred to his service as a veteran in both world wars, fighting bravely against the Germans in Africa during both bloody conflicts. By engaging in collaboration, he sought to protect England from the Germans and improve the broken political system that had been left behind by the failures of the pre-war government. The prosecution, naturally, had a field day. They accused Chesterton of being a proud, self-proclaimed English fascist and a former confidant of Oswald Mosley, a vile man who exploited the surrender of England to push his own hateful ideology. They portrayed him as a willing bootlicker who fervently supported Germany's actions and willingly became the figurehead for the rabidly anti-Semitic faction of the Royalist Party. The jury were confident of his guilt but struggled to decide a sentence. The NDL members and the moderates want to sentence him to exile, while the hardliner SLP and Sterling supporters alike demand death by hanging. So what do? Do we throw him off of the Isles? Or do we send him to the gallows? You know what's coming. You know what's coming. Alright, 2 choices. 1, throw him to the Isles. Throw him off the Isles. Or 2, send him to the gallows. Get your votes in. Vote, vote, vote. Let me know what you think. Which one should it be? Exile or sent to the gallows? Not sure a poll is needed. No. What do the options do? That is a complete secret, Cleanus. I don't want to influence the poll. I kind of regret showing what the first one did. Sorry, the Macmillan one. So I'm keeping it a secret now. Yeah, heaven forbid we have an influence poll around here. I know, crazy. So vote, vote, vote. Get your votes in. Meanwhile, while that's going along, just want to double check the elections. We have another day. 5, 6, 7. So we're still 7 all. However, I will be taking Somerset soon. All of us are going for Somerset right now. So I've got to keep on hammering at Somerset, I think.